Thousands come together in Atlanta, Georgia, but this is not a protest. Instead, a rare celebration. It's Juneteenth, the day in 1865 that symbolises the end of American slavery. It's celebrated every year, an Independence Day for Black Americans. But this year, more than ever, it has special meaning.
No justice! No peace! No justice! No peace!
From Georgia to Washington, D.C., the death of George Floyd and the recent killing of Rayshard Brooks, both at the hands of white police officers, has spawned a national movement for change.
We weren't taught about Juneteenth in school, so I feel like I am catching up on so much history that I was denied. And this year is more important because I think not only for the Black community, but also for America at large, we're starting to recognize the issues that we have in our history and the things that we have purposefully forgotten.
You might think this anniversary in this current climate would give the president pause for thought, a chance to try and reach out and heal a fractured nation. But not this president. Not only did he appear not to know what the anniversary was, he also chose this very day for his big comeback political rally, a chance to wallow in his supporters' adoration after months of absence.
You know, really, people don't realize it. They just think it's another day to get out and demonstrate what it has a meaning to it. It has a real meaning to it.
And it's a meaning that your president should know, you would assume, particularly given the current climate.
He should definitely know. And given this climate, I would think that he would be doing everything to bring the country closer together.
He later agreed to change the date, but he's still holding the rally in Tulsa, the site of an infamous massacre of black people by white mobs in the 1920s that killed hundreds.
To continue to hold a rally in a very significant area of the United States, which has a lot of tragic history, is frustrating. And just the continued lack of recognition after being informed of the holiday, I think, is very frustrating.
In Tulsa, they camped out on the streets, more focused on the future and the arrival of their president on Saturday than they were on any painful past.
I think that there's going to be some very important themes the president's going to introduce here, and I wanted to be here to support his message, which is going to be about law and order, I'm sure.
As if on cue, the president delivered with this apparent threat for any demonstrators thinking of turning up in Tulsa. Any protesters, anarchists, agitators, looters or lowlifes who are going to Oklahoma, please understand, you will not be treated like you have been in New York, Seattle or Minneapolis. It will be a much different scene.
This is what democracy looks like!
The protesters are coming peacefully, they say, and today in celebration. They just want their president to stop tweeting and listen.
Well, earlier I spoke to the writer, poet and lawyer C. Lillian Green from her home in Washington, D.C. And I began by asking her whether making Juneteenth a national holiday in the U.S. would make a difference.
I think it will make a difference to the extent that we begin to acknowledge as a people, as a country, that there has been a severe miseducation of the American people about what has happened in this country. What exactly was slavery? Most people have no idea of the human torture, terror, violence, and force that maintain that system of institutionalized enslavement of people. Nor do they know, many of them are probably learning for the first time about Juneteenth. Obviously, Black people have known about it for all of this time, but a lot of white people have not. And I think there's an educational component that will go a long way towards the healing that's necessary in this country.
One of your very poignant poems is called Crossroads, and I think you wrote it a few years back, but America really does seem to be at a crossroads right now, not least, of course, because it's an election year. What are the two directions on offer at the moment? Where do you think America will be heading?
Well, thank you for mentioning the poem. I think that the crossroads that we face is the crossroad of what is just and fair and the unjust road which leads nowhere. This country has written some amazing documents to start it in terms of the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and now we have to live into the meaning of those documents. I think when you see the outpouring of other people who have joined Black people in this fight that we have always been engaged in for freedom, that we are helping the nation to recognize that you have a responsibility to the documents that you created to live into them. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men, it said, but really all people are created equal, endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Is President Trump in a position to heal the rifts in the nation in this election year?
Well, I don't know that this particular president has the capacity or the level of empathy that would be necessary to move in that direction. And I think when you look in the United States at what's happening in the various cities, what you look at happening around the world, that there is a shift taking place, and that you have to recognize that America is I think, destined for something greater than what we have seen, and that to operate in this space where you suggest that somehow you cannot see that, it's difficult to imagine that we would be able to transform a consciousness like that.
And if he gets reelected in November, what does that say about America?
That is a very good question. We've had stops and starts in America, and this may be one of those if that's what happens. But I can say this in terms of Black people: we have fought for freedom since we were brought here. And I think we would continue to do so. And I think now that we have even more people assisting us, coming to recognize, because they saw what happened to Mr. Floyd. I mean, when you witness a killing like that, I think it does something to the soul. And you realize that there must be a better way to operate and to function for humanity to move forward.
Got to leave it there. Celia Leanne Green, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.